Recording. Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Worsham. I am the broker owner of Von Keith Burbank. It is a local residential real estate brokerage. And so I'm here helping out, doing a little workshop on budgeting. Oh, look at that. We get the conference room. Look at you showing off. So in the black shirt there, and then in the white shirt right over here, friend, our realtor association together. And so we volunteer to do these kind of financial workshops. So if you're watching this and you have a topic, so far I believe what we've covered is buying a home and the process involved in like finding an agent and all that stuff. Rebuilding or correcting your credit was the one that we did as well. And then now we're doing one on budgeting. So if you have a topic you would like us to cover, shoot it our way. And I will go into my presentation that I made here. It should be pretty quick and easy. I'm going to also go over my budget that I had from about 14 years ago, because I think it's easiest to share on a spreadsheet. So budgeting 101, this is advice that I've learned this about my father, that sometimes he will steal quotes from other people, but this is a direct quote from my father when I was struggling financially. He said, "It doesn't matter how much you make, it is how much you spend." And so that is why budgeting is so important. The book that I have mentioned and Christine has mentioned in other workshops that changed my life financially is The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. I read that book literally, if you skip all the anecdotes in the book, I read it in an afternoon. I think it probably took me like 3 hours. I read it in my living room. And then I immediately got up and built a budget. I'm a guy who's tracked my finances on a computer my entire adult life. And when I was a kid, I had a paper register and a checkbook. I would do it on the daily. As soon as you had websites to log into your banking, every morning I wake up and I check what's going on. But I did not budget. And because when I first put together my first budget, no exaggeration, I cried. I cried by myself in my living room because it was such a bummer. My wife and I each had 3 jobs and we were still broke and it didn't make sense. But within about 5 or 6 months of budgeting, what was weird is suddenly we had money to save. Suddenly we had money to do the things that we want to do. So what budgeting really does for you is it helps you spend your money in the way that you want. So here's the basics that we're going to kind of cover today is budgeting. Spend every penny on purpose. That is another quote from Dave Ramsey. So when you put your budget together, it's not just vague generalities. It is down to the penny, and you'll see that in my budget. And then I'm going to give you just some other tips as well, and we'll go into some other tips for personal finance. So here we go. These are the first tips that I have for making your budget. You want to do it every single month, in my opinion. Have you heard anybody that does it for more than a month? Or
No, I always,
yeah, it's monthly.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to do it. I sit down and make my budget on the 28th of every month. So on what is it? So in 2 days from today, we're recording this on April 26th for anybody who's watching it later. On April 28th, I sit down and I look at what is my wife making in May and what am I making? What paychecks are we expecting? What's our income? That's where I start. And then what's usually pretty consistent is you have all of your bills. So you make sure all those are paid. And then after that are what I call ancillary expenses that can fluctuate. Their entertainment, eating out. Those are the 2 primary ones that are budget busters. And you're going to want to really pay attention to those. So you set a budget. And then as that month is happening, I have a copy of my budget. I'll show you here next, where you record the actual number that you're spending to make sure that you're not overspending what you plan to spend. The other thing that is rough is you have to stick to it. This is what I think a lot of people can do when they start budgeting. I think most people don't start budgeting because they're afraid deep down in their subconscious. They're afraid to know, right? Right? It's all of us. It's not just you, Lisa. It's all of us. Yeah, we all are. Like, you're afraid to know what you're spending. You're afraid to the reality. Trust me, that's why I share that story every time I talk to somebody about budgeting, that I cried, because I don't want anybody to feel weird, because if it really sucks. If you don't cry the first time you make a budget, you're doing way better than I was. And then budgeting for the unexpected expenses as well. And I'll show you that here, because I think if I go, okay, I'm going to back out of this. That's my reminder to go to my budget. And I'm going to bring up The last time I did a budget in a spreadsheet format was in November of 2009. And so this is how I would track all of my money back in 2009. So you'll have to forgive some of these amounts. Like if you look right here, oh my gosh, you know what it was? This is me paying my rent for December in the middle of the month. I would always try to pay it in the middle of the previous month to try to impress my landlord. But look at that. For a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, it was a quadplex I was renting. So there were 4 units in one, but I was renting one of them. It was bedroom, 2-bath, $1,452 in North Hollywood, California. So this is my income that I have budgeted for each week. I know this was back when I was a comedian on the road. So I knew that this week I had a gig, I'd make $500. That week I'd make $400. This week I must have had a big gig or something. I must have been headlining somewhere to make $1,800. And then I'd have my wife's paychecks. And over here you have percentages. So ideally, this is very hard to do in Southern California. So if you're watching this outside of Southern California, you want to try to target 30% of your monthly income. So these percentages that I built here are based on this number here. What percentage is that expense of our total monthly income there? And then this was my cell phone bill. Again, this is just a budgeted amount of $200. So I had this section where all of my living expenses, this is cable, this is the electric company, this is the gas company, household. That would be for if I needed to buy like furniture or something like that, something for the house. Personal care would be like makeup for my wife, clothing, haircuts, that kind of stuff. Healthcare, whenever I go to the doctor or something. Pet care, so this is for dog food. Laundry, because we had a coin-operated laundry at that building, so I had to budget money to get quarters, $50 a month, just doing, wow. And then this is groceries. This is also weird to think that $100 a week is what I would spend. Oh, and then this was to give me a little bit of extra. So I have it up here for week 5 weeks, because sometimes they're like, you'll get a shorter week up here or a shorter week here. So I would add it up and broke it up that way. Then I have my auto expenses. This is just for gas, and this is for my insurance. And then I never budgeted, as you can see, that was a mistake, for any kind of maintenance. I would try to budget for that stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. This is this is for the kid. We had just had a kid. Our son at this time was just almost a year and a half old. So we would budget money for clothes, for him going to the doctor, supplies, which is primarily like if we go to Target for the diapers, I would put in with the groceries. So this would be if we went to Target for like, I don't know, diaper cream, that kind of stuff. And then if you got them toys, and then these are personal, but these are what I would call ancillary expenses. This is eating out, and this is entertainment. This is if you're buying gifts for somebody. This category right here, very important. I called it blow. That's not for drugs. That just to be clear, I'm glad somebody laughed at that, because I got scared as soon as I said it. Don't forget, at one time I was a comedian, so I said lots of inappropriate things. Anyway, that is for like just money that you're just spending it. Like it's just like, so if you have room in your budget because maybe you've got all your debts paid off and everything, and you want to have $200 that you could just like one night you're like, screw it, we're doing this, right? Like that's where that money goes. But there also, because I traveled a lot as a comedian, for a while I was putting money to budget for speeding tickets and stuff because I had to drive around a lot. This is because I was self-employed. So this may not apply to a lot of you, but these are all the things that I would use as a comedian. So if I had to submit for a festival, or if I went to go see other shows, this is for if I had to do headshots or anything get closed, I had to pay commission to management. So I knew I was going to have to pay that much based on how much money I had coming. This is if I needed supplies or marketing, I had to mail stuff. I'm going into comedy stuff. But anyway, if you have job expenses, you could go here. And then this is the savings. So every month I was trying to put away $650. Every month, oh, this is so funny. Now he gets $200 a month, the lucky son of a gun. That's my son, Jacob. When he was first born, we put $25 a month into a savings account. And then once we got to, I think it was, we had to have at least $5,000 or something, or maybe it was $2,500. Then we could put it into an investment account. I would highly recommend, if anybody has kids or if you're about to have kids, take a small amount of money that you can afford and stick it into a long-term investment account. Talk to a financial planner if you have one that you can trust, because that money will grow exponentially. I think they already have, oh man, I want to say it's close to $40,000 that they have at this point. And once he hit about 3 or 4 years old, I bumped it up to $100 a month, because we also had our second son. So each of them were getting $100. And then about 2 years ago, I bumped it up to $200 a month because our income was going up and we could afford more. This car fund here, oh, there's spit on my computer. This car fund here was I would pay myself into a savings account when I didn't have a car payment, so that I was still paying a car payment and saving up to pay cash. I paid cash for all my cars then because Dave Ramsey is very anti-debt. And then I built this little summary down here. And if anybody wants this, you can email me. I'll give you my contact, and I could just give you a blank version of this that you could tweak if that's easy, or if you need help with figuring this out. I'm more than happy to connect with you and walk you through it or help you build this. I just don't want like computer literacy or illiteracy in my case to be the reason why you can't make a budget. So I can help you with that. So down here, I like to have a summary so I knew how much of my total income, what percentage was I spending on each category, and what was I doing. So now I'll move over to the actual. So I would make that on the 28th, and then come the first of the month, I would actually start recording it. So if you look, I budgeted that I was going to make $2,700 that month, but in actuality, I made $3,418. I budgeted that my wife was going to make, I think, $817, but she actually got $870. It's okay to be conservative on the income, right? Where you could come in a little low. It's always great to go over budget on income, but on the other stuff, you don't want to be conservative. You want to give yourself a cushion. Like I think if I go back here to Verizon, that's when I paid the bills at the end of the month. I was budgeting $200 a month for my cell phone, but it actually only cost me $116. So that always gives you more cushion. And you can decide how you want to do that. And I think I budgeted, let's go back because I think I know why. So I budgeted $450 for groceries. This is so weird to think. I think now I spend close to like $1,500 because I got 2 teenage boys. Oh. Anyway, but it was only $333 that I actually spent, right? But here's where I think, if I remember correctly, when I was reliving this, yeah, $299. So I was $200 on dining out because I didn't think we could afford. Oh, I put $100 on dining out, but we way overspent on dining out that much that month. And I'll go over this allowance part here in another segment. But you could see here in the red, what I did was I added the difference. So I built into the spreadsheet where it would copy the amounts from the budget over here. So I could see it would go red if it's negative, and that means I've gone over on that amount. And then I added like a little summary so that it makes it easier to kind of, this is helpful when you're building your next budget to see just these two columns side by side. So you could say, okay, I planned for this, but this actually came in. So next month, how do I want to tweak it? How can I change it to make it better fit? So if you find that you're spending more money on groceries than you're budgeting, and that means you need to take more money and add it there. And that might mean you have to take some money out of something along those lines. All right, that's my budget. I'm trying to go through this pretty quick. Oh, it's very little to see it. I'm sorry.
I just screenshotted it and emailed it to you.
Okay. All right. It will be hard to see on a phone, but maybe we can also get emails and send the video, because on the actual video, it should be pretty big. But if you're on like a smaller screen, that might be hard to see. But can you guys think of any questions or anything, Christine, you want to throw in? Or
So for me, what helped, because I created an Excel version of my budget too. And the way I started, I actually went back to my bank statements and my credit card statements for the last 6 months. If you could pull the last 12, that would be great, because then you can actually go through, if you don't already know how much you're spending, it's a great way to start. And if you don't have access to maybe the last 6 or 12 months, a statement, just go to the last month and see how much you spent in either clothing or groceries or gasoline for your car or eating out. And then just start there, because you have to start somewhere. So don't feel overwhelmed when you start this, because looking at this, it could seem like, oh my goodness, you want to pull your hair out. And as Justin said, he started crying when he did it. When I did it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is really how much I'm spending on getting my nails done. Like, this is just crazy, right? Like, so you'll find stuff that you can totally cut back on and still give yourself the freedom to have money. I think for me, my fear was a budget was going to be restrictive, but in fact, it was actually very freeing.
Yeah.
It gave me a lot more freedom to be in control of my money, as opposed to not knowing. And then I was able to save, and then save more, and then save more, and cut back. So my one tip is to start somewhere, is to look back at your bank statements and your credit card statements.
Yep.
And then just start plugging in numbers into the spreadsheet.
And I didn't think of this beforehand, so I'm glad Christine said that, is that I think if you don't already, it's important to categorize your expenses. Mm-hmm. So there's free apps that you can get on the phone that you work as a checkbook register that lets you create categories, and then they'll show you the total if you don't have a computer. But like common ones that I think a lot of people use, Quicken, I've heard, is a common one. I use Banktivity. It's Banktivity. I like that one because, and I'll try and throw it in the chat. I'm gonna stop sharing this so we can. But I like that one because it works on my phone. So what happens on my stuff is that my wife has the app on her phone. I have the app on my phone. When she goes to the grocery store and it says this is how much it is, she can instantly record it. And that works as our checkbook register as well. And then it syncs up with what's on my computer, with what's on my phone and her phone. So I'm kind of a nerd like that. But you could still do it, like you could categorize it if you're not a computer person, but if you are, you should track it. And then that also makes it easier if you've been tracking it to go back and look at, like what Christine's saying, you could go back 6 months and see what you spent on stuff there.
And another great tip too, which I found worked for me in the beginning until I was getting used to it, because I've been budgeting for a very long time, is the envelope rule, which
Yeah, I got that coming.
Dave Ramsey. Oh, you do? Okay,
Yep.
you want to jump into that then?
Yeah,
I don't
thank
wanna...
you.
I was gonna ask something similar.
Yep.
Do you guys recommend to open up or have like different bank accounts? Not maybe bank accounts, but like maybe like use a credit card for like your gas or.
So I personally like simple. So I'll
Okay.
have one credit card. I know some people have a credit card for gas and groceries, like
Mhm.
one card for solely gas, one card for groceries. And that's a great way to build credit too. If people need to start building their credit, is to have 2 credit cards solely. One possibly just for groceries, one for gas, or maybe 3, and then one for miscellaneous stuff. I personally have one at the moment because I know exactly how I'm tracking, and I have literally one banking institution. I have multiple accounts with that banking institution, but I just like simple. So I like everything in one spot.
Okay.
But I know some people, they might
I'm
have
different. So
different
I have,
bank accounts.
I do a variation of that. I'm not a fan of credit card debt. So
Same.
here's the thing that I will tell you is that I know it's kind of I call it a necessary evil, but you have to be, so like what people will tell you, like, let's say you get a Shell card because you get points for putting gas in your car. Like I have, from when I was a comic, I have a Southwest Airlines card because the more I use that card to buy airfare, I would get more points, and the less money I had to pay if I ever got a free flight, that meant I would make that much more money as a comic.
Yeah.
And then when I stopped doing comedy, I got a Marriott card because that way, whenever we travel, I could use like Marriott points. And I had so many Marriott points. One time it paid for like a vacation in Hawaii. Like, so you can use those points, but you have to understand, I cannot say this loud enough, that the credit card companies know that if they incentivize you to use the credit card, statistically, you are going to rack up a balance and you're going to pay them a ton of interest and you're going to overwhelm yourself. They are banking on that psychologically. That is their plan. That is their business model. So you just have to not fall into the trap. You can use it to your benefit, but when you fall victim to it, then it means that you got to really rein yourself in. So if you're budgeting and planning and paying off that credit card every month or before every month, like if you pay it off every week, the whole thing is that a credit card means that you are spending more money than what you make. So remember, what we started this whole thing off is, it's not how much you make that matters. It is how much you spend. No matter how much you make, if you are spending less than you make, you can accrue wealth, you can save money, and you can change your financial situation. But it all boils down to spending less than you make. And so that's my opinion on the credit cards. Going back to your account question. So like I had back in the day, a car savings account. So when I didn't have a car payment, because I always like to pay cash. Once I paid my cars off, I kept paying the same amount that I had in the car payment into the savings account, because that meant that by the time, if I paid that for 5 or 6 years, the same thing, I have enough cash to pay for a car. So when my car died after 10 years, in most cases, I had twice the money I would need to pay for it because I was making interest off of that money instead of paying interest to the loan. And that's what I like. So now I have a savings account for vacations. I have a savings account for taxes because I'm a 1099. And then I have a savings account for like a profit. So I like percentages, and then I have our general savings. So whenever I get paid, this is how I do it now. I could not have done this then. But what I do now is I take 25% of whatever comes in and I stick it in savings.
Okay.
And then I take 5% of whatever comes in, I stick it in this little profit account. And then every month I put a chunk of money into the vacation And if I need that money, like I've dipped into my vacation savings account because I needed savings and I didn't want to touch my savings, but I'm like, because vacation is less important to me. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So here's the envelope system. Sorry if this is a little blurry. I tried to find an online representation. This is Dave Ramsey talks about it in his book, The Total Money Makeover. So the idea of it is that if you're not a computer savvy person and you like physical cash, this is your alternative. So you get envelopes for your rent or your mortgage, your utility bill here, right? And whenever you get your paycheck, you could cash it and then you stick how much cash you have. So I think in most cases in today's world, what is most practical, you tell me if I'm wrong, ladies, is that for like groceries, eating out, any kind of like entertainment expense or something that is like a reoccurring, but you go to a store, like I don't think you're going to be able to pay your electrical bill or your rent or mortgage in cash. So that part to me doesn't quite make sense. There are also online apps that will let you do this envelope system that they have it built into their system. Like Banktivity has a version of their budget that you could switch to an envelope if you want. But I would say like groceries, you could stick in a savings account in an envelope. And that way, whenever it's time to go to the grocery store, you go take whatever money you have allotted. And then the idea being, especially like eating out, if you got $50 or $100 that month that you can eat out, then great. You just go to that envelope. But when that money's gone, there's no more eating out. And that's what it's intended to do. Any questions on that? Oh, go ahead.
I think psychologically seeing the money, because it's a lot harder to give a dollar bill than it is just to swipe a credit card. Because when you give, it's like you're seeing that physically leave your possession versus a card you're just swiping. It's not psychologically registering that like, oh, I just spent another $20. So I think the envelope system is great. I personally don't even carry a debit card. I have always cash on me and one credit card. So for me, the money system worked really, really well in the very beginning. Envelope system, yeah.
And Christine is absolutely right. I've seen their actual studies that have been done that show that the reason, that's the other thing credit card companies like, and then why they want everybody to use things like Apple Pay and credit cards is because there is a psychological disconnect that when you just swipe your card, you don't actually feel the hurt when you spend $100 as much as when you give that register person at the Ralph's or the Vons or Kroger, wherever you live, you give them that $100 bill, that hurts a little bit more. And so they're banking on you just swiping and not being connected to your money. That's how they make money.
And also writing a check versus paying online, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. So these are just some financial tips that I've picked up over the years. So I talked about that. I have it in there in the budget, the allowance. So my wife and I, when we first got married, we would fight like most people about money. Like you spend too much on this. Well, you spend too much on that. So I came up with this solution. I'm not claiming to invent it. I just thought of it though. So what I did was we had a joint checking account, right? And then that's where all of our money would get deposited from our any money we made from our jobs. And then all of our bills would get paid out of there. But each month at the beginning of the month when we got paid, I would take, it started, I think, with 25. And then as we started making or saving more money, I bumped it up to 50. We stopped doing it. At that point, we were each putting in it was $150 that we each had each month. And then after that, it was it didn't matter. So we went away from it. But anyway, $50 a month goes into that account for the debit card, right? That's connected to that. So she has an account with her debit card and I have an account. And so what we would do is if we would go to the grocery store, we would reimburse that account. That's a whole other thing. But anyway, so that meant that $50, she could spend whatever she wanted. So each of us would give ourselves an allowance for that month. And that was spending money. I spent it on video games. I'm a saver. So I always had probably 75 to $100 at least in that account. Sometimes it would get up to 150 to $200. The fights we would still have is she would always overspend to the point where at the end of it, I would have to keep like $25 extra because she would take it right down to the bottom and then she would need to put gas in her car. And then she'd be like, well, I need money for gas. And sometimes in the beginning, she would overdraw the account. We almost got divorced over that stuff.
Oh, no.
And then I talked about it earlier, my other thing. I think it's a good idea with online banking being what it is today, is making it a daily habit. I try to do it in the morning. Sometimes that's hard. So I've had to learn to do it at night because I've had this thing recently where it's like, well, if I can't do it in the morning, I guess I can't do it. And that's stupid. So I do it at night if I can't do it in the morning, but just checking in to see what money is coming in and what money hasn't, what money's cleared, what hasn't, it's just by checking in on a daily basis, you're constantly aware of what's going on with your finances. And then the debt snowball, which I finally found a graphic for that. So this is the debt snowball. I learned it from Dave Ramsey again. I don't think it's something that he invented though. But the idea being is that you take all of your debts. So this is not mathematic. This is psychological. So each of these, excuse me, could have interest rates that it wouldn't make sense, right? So if you're paying, for instance, if you're paying 20% interest on this debt, right? But you're paying 3% interest on this debt, it makes sense to try to pay this debt off first because it's a higher interest rate. But what Dave Ramsey has learned over years is that it actually psychologically, there's more of a benefit to doing it this way psychologically. And so therefore you're more likely to succeed. So if you're trying to work out a debt, so let's say right here, you have a total payment or a total available $700. When you add up all the minimum payments for these debts, it adds up to $644. So you have a $56 surplus. So you take this small debt here, that's a $25 minimum payment, and you add the $56 until you've paid that off. So if you look at it based on that amount, in basically a month, maybe two, they're going to have this whole thing paid off. So you take that $25 plus the 65, and now you start paying that whole amount to this debt, right? So you take all of this you're paying and you add that to this debt. And then once that's done, you start adding that. So by the time you get here, you're paying $600 or $700 swings at this debt here. And that's the way to go. Now, again, if you do some research online, there's going to be people who will tell you that you end up paying more in interest. I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is that psychologically, this is your most likely path to success. So if you're struggling to manage and pay off your debts, I highly recommend the debt snowball. And I think that's it, unless you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, with the debt snowball, you feel empowered because you see you knocked off one debt and then you're motivated to get to the next debt and then to the next debt. And that's why this method works, because it really is an empowering method, in my opinion, versus, mathematically, is it probably the best? No, because again, as Justin mentioned, you might be leaving the highest interest to the end, but that highest interest might be your highest balance too. So it's one of those things where this method does work.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of sticking to and being consistent with it and being on a mission.
I did it. We had car payments, and I think we even had a personal loan when my wife and I were struggling. I had a appendicitis and had to go to the hospital. They hit me with like a $60,000 medical bill. We didn't have health coverage at the time. And so that was when I went to my dad and said, my wife and I were each working 3 jobs and we have no money. This can't be the way to live life. Like, what am I doing wrong? And my dad gave me that Total Money Makeover book and said, check this out and do what this guy says and see if that works for you. And like I said, within 5 months, it felt like we had all the money in the world to do with what we wanted. There is a learning curve. It might take you longer than 5 months. It might take you less than 5 months. I'm just saying it took me 5 months. And then within about 2 years of doing it, we found that we didn't need two extra jobs. Like it really becomes about focusing your money where you want to spend it. If you don't track it and you don't pay attention and you don't plan for it, you end up spending money in places that you don't even know aren't that important to you. Like when you start realizing, like my wife loves ice cream. My wife goes to Baskin Robbins so much. She's a part of the new employee training. When they hire a new person, they tell the person what my wife likes to have. So when they see her parking her car, that they start making it, right? So I looked at it and I said, hey, do you realize that you're spending like $2,400 a year on ice cream? And she was like, what? And so just knowing that by tracking it and looking at it from that perspective, if you look at it and you go $2,400 for ice cream, that sounds fine. Then that means you're budgeting and you're spending your money the way you want to. But if you look at it and go, I do not want to spend $2,400 a month. Like I literally took a year off of just like really paying attention to see, because my wife has never been into this. It's always been my thing. And I'm like, what if she's right? So for 1 year, I didn't pay attention to anything that we were spending. And I'm embarrassed to say in that year, we spent $25,000 on eating out alone. That's $2,000 plus a month. That's insane. And when I went back and looked at that, I almost cried again. I was like, that was stupid. Imagine what I could do with $25,000. That's all a car. I could buy a car with what I spent going out to eat with my family.
That could have been a down payment on a house too.
Oh my God.
It's a lot. But
It's
that's
dumb.
what budgeting allows us to do, right?
Yep.
Unless you actually budget, wouldn't have known. And then it's like you it's not that you don't have to ever eat out again. It's just,
No.
okay, you could cut back. Maybe you do half or a quarter or a fraction of it. and still give yourself the, the pleasures of being able to enjoy. So
All right, so I'm going to end the recording. So oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I have another slide that I totally forgot about. There we go. So I'll pause up here so you guys can, am I sharing it? No, I'm not sharing it. Helps if you share it, Justin. I'm very good at this. You guys are lucky to have me. Where to go? Oh, I gotta get out of this. Sorry, guys. It turns out I'm not so good at this. This should work now. Share screen.
And then-
This is all of our contact info. So if you want, you can give, this is Christine's number and her email address. This is my number, my email address. If you have questions about any of this, need help with any of this, feel free to reach out to us, and we are more than happy to set aside some time to help you. I'll speak for myself and not Christine. If for whatever reason, like if you email me and you don't hear back from me within 24 hours, feel free to email me again or send me a text to this cell number or give me a call. Sometimes just with job and stuff like today, it was a busy day of just putting out a fire with an escrow I was dealing with. So sometimes I get occupied, and it never means that I don't want to help or that you're annoying or anything like that. I give you full permission. If you don't hear from me in 24 hours, hit me up again. And it'll remind me and I will get back to you. Like, cause I see it and I will go, crap, I got to get back to that person. Anything else you want to add before I hit stop recording?
yeah, we're definitely here for you guys. So if you need help in any way, shape, or form, please reach out to us. We've been there. We can, help you structure it, make it specialized for your particular circumstance. So all our contact info, as Justin mentioned, is there. We're here for you guys.
Oh, do you want to throw your contact info, like your email in the chat in case you end up sharing this video elsewhere? In case anybody wants to ask you about, hey, when are we doing another one of those workshops or any of that? Would that be helpful, Lisa? And then what we'll do is we'll stop the recording after she throws her email address in there, and then we'll take questions for those of you that are here live. And if you guys have any questions or need some more specific information, maybe to your scenario or anything along those lines. Again, if it's embarrassing or you don't want to go into anything personal, totally understand. We could talk about it offline. More than happy to help you. But my hope is that by me sharing the fact that I cried and I spent $25,000 in a year eating out, will make you feel less embarrassed, because trust me, if you've made the mistake, I've also made it probably multiple times. All right, there we go. I will hit stop record if that's okay with you, Lisa.
Sounds good.
All right.